Research indicates that gaslighting often involves personality traits like narcissism, psychopathy, and manipulation, traits that increase the likelihood of using these tactics in intimate relationships. In a recent study, researchers explored how these traits influence a person's willingness to use gaslighting as a tool for control. You know when someone repeatedly denies something that happened or insists you got it all wrong, even when you're sure of what you saw or heard. At first, it might just seem like a disagreement, but when it becomes constant, you start to wonder, am I losing my mind? Strange, right? But believe it or not, there's a name for this: gaslighting. This behavior isn't just confusing, it's a form of manipulation that makes us doubt what we know and feel. What's even more unsettling is that gaslighting can be hard to recognize, especially when it comes from someone close to us. It's one of those behaviors that slowly chips away at our confidence until we feel disconnected from our own reality. But how does this happen? And what can we do to avoid falling into this psychological trap? What makes gaslighting so effective is how subtle and persistent it is. Essentially, the manipulator takes advantage of our trust and insecurities to create a parallel reality where their words always seem more logical or sensible than our own perceptions. This behavior happens gradually until we start doubting what we know to be true. Over time, the victim of this type of manipulation begins to question their own memory and sanity. And this is where the problem becomes even more complicated. The more doubt sets in, the more dependent the person becomes on the manipulator, creating a cycle where the victim feels incapable of trusting themselves. The results showed that individuals with high levels of narcissism or manipulative tendencies are more likely to adopt gaslighting tactics to maintain power over others. These manipulators use distraction, denial, and lies to confuse and undermine the victim's confidence. These findings reinforce that gaslighting doesn't happen by accident. It's a deliberate and repeated strategy that can cause deep harm to the mental health of those who experience it. The effect of gaslighting on the mind is like slow, almost imperceptible erosion. The manipulated person begins questioning small details, something they heard, the tone of a conversation, or even their own mood. At first, these are small doubts, but over time, they grow and accumulate. The victim starts to distrust their own perceptions more and more, seeking confirmation from the manipulator, who gains greater control with each doubt they implant. This process creates emotional dependence. The victim feels they need the manipulator to understand reality, creating a cycle where self-confidence is gradually eroded. In the end, what seemed like a simple disagreement turns into a web of confusion, leaving the victim unsure of their own memory or feelings. Imagine you have a coworker who appears to be your office friend. They're the person always saying they're there to help and that they root for your success. At first, you genuinely believe you can rely on each other, but over time, some of their behaviors start to confuse you. For instance, you discuss strategies for a project, and they suggest you take a certain approach. When you follow their idea and present it to the team, they say with a smile, "I never told you to do it that way." You must have misunderstood. You feel the team looking at you, and this friend keeps smiling as if they had nothing to do with what happened. This kind of situation starts to repeat. In multiple conversations, they imply that you're misunderstanding or overreacting. And whenever you try to address it, they respond with something like, "You're so stressed. You need to relax. No one here is against you." Over time, you begin doubting yourself, questioning your own memories and decisions. The good news is that even in difficult situations like these, there are ways to break free from this cycle of manipulation and regain confidence in yourself. The first step? Recognize what's happening. Realizing that these doubts and confusions are being planted by someone else helps you see what's manipulation and what's real. One helpful tool is keeping a reality journal where you document key conversations and events. It may sound simple, but having these records makes a difference. That way, when the manipulator tries to distort the facts, you have concrete evidence to remind yourself of what actually happened. These notes help keep your mind grounded and push doubts away. And don't forget, setting boundaries is essential. Instead of getting into arguments or trying to prove every point, stay calm and say something like, "This is what I understood," or "I'm confident in what I perceived." This allows you to maintain your stance without leaving room for discussions that only serve to create more confusion. If you've come to realize that this is happening to you, the most effective way to protect yourself is to set a definitive boundary, meaning cutting off contact with the person causing the manipulation. It's not always easy to end a relationship, especially if it's a close friendship or intimate connection, but in many cases, this is the healthiest choice to restore your mental health and peace. Once you've taken these first steps, it's time to further strengthen your confidence and build emotional resilience to handle these situations. A great place to start is talking to trusted people about what's happening. Friends or family who know you well can provide an outside perspective and often confirm that what you're feeling is real. This support is essential to avoid feeling isolated or questioning your own sanity. Another important step is practicing self-care and focusing on your emotional well-being. Activities that help you reconnect with yourself, like hobbies, exercise, or moments of relaxation, are great ways to recharge your energy and reduce the impact of manipulation. And of course, whenever possible, work on developing and strengthening your self-confidence. Therapy can be a powerful tool to go through this process with more strength and assurance. The more you trust what you feel and perceive, the less vulnerable you'll be to this type of mental game. This process may take time, but every small action strengthens your ability to identify and confront gaslighting, putting you back in control of your perceptions and emotions. Life is meant to be light, not confusing. Stay firm in what's true for you. See you next time.